there was an inner voice saying, there's more for you to do. There's more for you to do. And I ignored it. And the more I ignored it, the louder it got.
Martians landed.
Yes.
Wearing Prada suits.
Yes.
Drinking Henry's seltzer.
Yes.
Chewing juicy fruit.
Yes, and?
Your branding here.
Yes, brand.
Your message here.
Yes, and?
A verse about
Yes.
your product here.
Yes.
I'm Hersh Rephun.
Yes, and?
I'm a message therapist.
Yes.
And I have a podcast.
Yes, brand.
That's right, that's it.
Yes.
We'll help you fix the world.
Yes.
Or your bottom line.
All right.
Your bottom line.
Get it. I get it. Welcome to the Yes Brand Podcast.
Who's in the hot seat today on Yes Brand? None other than Errol Allen. Errol left his job in corporate America at the age of 53 to start his own consulting business focused on helping people improve their processes and their operations. He's a process improvement and systems expert. He has all those skills that I lack when it comes to organization and time optimization. Errol's got this hands-on approach where he helps organizations and people analyze the information, analyze the people around them, the processes, and the technology to achieve business goals. He's a native Houstonian and a city boy at heart. And he's gained a lot of insight that he's going to share with us today. During his corporate career, he worked with ADT, he worked with the Houston Post, TCI, Cablevision, Excel Communications, and so on, and GEICO. So welcome, Errol, to Yes Brand.
Thank you, Hersh. I'm happy to be here with you today, sir.
It's great to have you. As you know, what intrigued me at first when we met was that you had stepped out away from a corporate career at 53 years old, and tell us a little bit about that transition and what prompted it.
What prompted it? Ooh, Hersh. My last corporate stop, I wasn't really using. I feel like we all have gifts, right? Some
Yeah.
of us have multiple gifts. I'm analytical by nature, and I just feel like that's one of my gifts. And I didn't feel like I was utilizing my gift. And there was an inner voice saying to me, like around the fifth year of that corporate gig, I was there for 10. So like around the fifth year, there was an inner voice saying, there's more for you to do. There's more for you to do. And I ignored it. And the more I ignored it, the louder it got. And then situations that arose kind of prompted me to make the decision, hey, it's time to go.
Mhm.
So I left. And everybody thought I had lost my mind because, I knew my job very, very well. I could do it with my eyes closed, really. And I had a company car, gas card. I could go anywhere in Texas, just whatever. And people thought I had lost my mind. But I was convinced within myself, this is the right thing to do for me for the rest of my life because I just had that feeling there was more for me to do, more for me to share than what I was doing at that time. So that's kind of what prompted me to go.
Yeah. So what was the first step that you took?
Ooh, deciding what it is I wanted to do. I asked myself, when was I having the most fun when I was in corporate America? And it was when I was an operations analyst for TCI Cablevision. And one of the things that I did was to look at how we did what we did. My GM there said to me, I want you to go through this place and look at how we do things because it's kind of a mess. So we need to look at how we're doing what we're doing and determine what's the best way to do it. So I set out on that journey within that company. And it was fun. It was not like work, you know.
Yeah.
I, I would get up in the morning, man, ready, headed out to work and just to have fun. And so when I asked myself that question, it went back to when I was in operation. I said, okay, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to set out to help businesses look at their processes to determine is this the best way to do things? And if not, what can we do to improve the way we're doing things?
Yeah. Um, it's as you're speaking, I'm coming back to what you just said a moment ago about people said, have you lost your mind? When you leave, and it makes sense when you have stability of any kind. I think the last several years have given us even a greater appreciation of, stability and, what sanity, looks like because we find ourselves losing it quite a bit. And it's a challenge. So there's a certain spirit that some of us have where we want the stability, we appreciate the stability, but we want some independence as well. We want we just are tired of trading the independence for the stability. Did you feel some of that constraint?
Yeah, I felt, you know, don't get me wrong, Hirsch. I enjoyed every one of my stops, right? I,
Yeah,
I, I enjoyed every one of them, but I just felt like there were more people for me to help, right? To use my full skill set that I had to be unchained, right?
yeah.
Just couldn't be restricted. I had to be able to, my dad said when I was a kid, teenager, he told me I was a rebel. He did. He said, boy,
Oh,
boy, you're a rebel. If things are not going the way you feel like they should be going, you cut back against the grain. And he said, and the thing that is funny about it is that you don't care what people think when you cut back. And I mean, I'm just a kid when he said this, and I
yeah. How old were you when he said?
was 17, 18 years old, right?
Okay, yeah,
What? But it turned out that's the way I would think. He also said, son, you see things from a different angle than most people. You have a tendency to you'll be over here looking at things, whereas most people look at straight on, and you look at things at a different angle. So you're able to see things differently than a lot of people. And it turned out to be true. So
yeah.
I don't know, Hersh. It sounds weird, but you know, I just I wanted to be able to create some things from here
Yeah.
um, to share my skill set. That's
Well, it also feels like a a desire for some imagination to enter the picture. Because if it's always taking directives from from the GM or the management or whatever, there's a limit. There's a
mm,
limit to how you can play. Like you mentioned that you had fun at TCI. Now it's a question of but what about when it's not fun? Then
mhm.
what do you do? So you saw operations was that sweet spot, and how did you go about establishing EA Consulting?
um, Looked for speaking opportunities, here around Houston, just to get my name out there, and then writing. I kind of like to write. Writing. There's a business newspaper here, the Houston Business Journal.
Hmm.
And an acquaintance said to me, you should submit your articles to the Houston Business Journal. And I'm like, what? I mean, this is a major business
Yeah.
newspaper. He said, man, they accept my articles. So he I don't write as near as well as you, right? So I was like, okay. So I did what he said, and sure enough, they started to publish some of my articles. So speaking, um, writing, um, just any opportunity where I could get a chance to get in front of business people, to establish myself as somebody who understood operations and the ins and outs.
Did you feel, Errol, like you needed to say something new or just demonstrate your, because like I think about your dad telling you you're a rebel. Did you feel like it was thought leadership in the sense that you were maybe putting out something new? Did you feel it was showcasing expertise and offering expertise?
Not really new, but basic, right? Uh,
Uh-huh. Okay.
the basic ins and outs of operations, that I felt like needed attention.
Mm,
Um, Not necessarily, but all businesses run on processes, right? All of them.
hmm
Our lives run on processes. We don't realize it sometimes, but we have day-to-day processes just in our everyday lives. Um, just wanting to bring some focus to basic operation, things that I felt that needed more attention. Because if they got more attention, the business could be better, the employee morale could be better, um, the cross-functional departments, and communication within a company that could be better. I just wanted people to understand everything that's connected to, having good processes, efficient and effective processes. Not necessarily anything new, but just basic things that maybe people had not thought about.
Yeah. Yeah, and if the foundational stuff, the funny thing is you can only deviate and be imaginative when you've mastered the fundamentals. You have to know the rules. You have to know the rules before you can break them or deviate from them.
Right.
So helping people kind of focus on some of those things they may have skipped over or missed makes a lot of sense. Now, there's a difference between working for a huge corporation and starting your own business and getting out there and speaking and writing. So you started using your assets, which makes perfect sense. Your ability as a writer and communicator, and so you wanted to get out there. um, were there a lot of other consultants, like what you would consider process and systems consultants, that you were competing with? What was the marketplace like?
I don't know first. I don't know. I didn't look at who my competitors
Right.
were, you know. Um, in my opinion, sometimes you have to be careful with that because you look at your competitors, especially when you're just starting out. You look at your competitors and you can say, "Oh, they've been in business a long time. Man, do I even have a chance?" Right? You start negative talking to yourself, right?
Uh-huh. Right. Okay.
Um, I didn't even look, to be honest with you, Hirsch. I just felt like, you know, I've been in corporate a long time. And one friend of mine, he always had this word for me, right? Insightful. He would
Uh-huh.
say, "You're an insightful person," right? So I start thinking, I have all of these insights from being inside and dealing with things and kind of developing my own methodology, how to go about, looking at processes and operations. So just to be honest, I never looked at who my competitors were.
Mhm.
I didn't. I know that's probably one thing you should do when you're thinking of starting a business. You're like, who are my competitors? How long have they been in business? What do they focus on? I didn't do that, Hirsch, just to be honest with you.
Well, you admit that you skipped over a part of the process, but that said, it doesn't seem to have harmed you, and you knew yourself well enough to say, look, I don't want to get discouraged. The last thing I want is to get discouraged by other people. And I also have to admit, I have gone through a large part of my career, never really, I mean, I did have a period where I studied the competition very carefully, but there was a point that was later on. It was like when I had kind of gotten out of my that niche that I was in, and I
Mm-hmm.
was ready to re-enter the game a little bit. And I said,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I better brush up on who's out there now doing it, because
Mm-hmm.
as I stepped out, there was probably a bunch of people jump in and fill the hole. So I got to see who's in there doing it. But I always looked at it almost like we're so different. Each of us is so unique that even if the person next to me is doing the same service, they're doing it their way and I'm doing it my way. And the client's going to want to work with one of us. They're going to
Right.
walk into a room and look at us and listen to us for 5 minutes. And within that time, they'll decide which one of us they want to work with.
Right.
And it's we can break it down scientifically and everything else, but you know, they're gonna get an impression and they're gonna like it or they're gonna like the other thing better. And
Right.
that's a large part of it. When you're in the service business, when you're not, we're not selling bicycles, we're not selling products like that.
Right.
Um, that brings me to, in your business, how do you frame the work that you do, the products, so to speak, the service, the consulting service? How do you go about presenting the information?
When you say presenting the information, what information are you mean?
Well, uh, you know, I'm looking at your website, for example.
Yeah.
So, um, you're showing just as an example, process documentation service, right? How do you figure out what you're going to put out there as the first thing someone sees, let's say,
Well,
on the EA consulting site?
if you scroll down a little bit on my homepage, there's some scenarios, right? Are you facing these things, right? First of all, is this you? Are you facing these things? If so, we can help you, right?
Right.
We can help you to overcome these. So it's all about what is a prospect experiencing, um, and can we help you with that?
Yeah. Yeah. I see this. Is this your company?
Mhm.
Yeah. I think because that does fascinate me, and we've all done this, and that's why a lot of people that are listening to the show are literally they're figuring out right now as we speak what they're going to put on that homepage, what they're going to put on LinkedIn. These are like
Mhm.
the nuts and bolts of a business,
Mhm.
face of a business,
Mhm.
you know?
Mhm. Mhm.
And it's great to have somebody with your experience on the show to point out to people what's an important thing to take into consideration, namely, what is your audience going through,
Right.
um, and you're highlighting what they're going through and how you can fix it. You
Basically,
know,
it's kind of like a
um,
doctor, right? It's kind of like a doctor.
yeah,
My general practitioner, I've been going to this guy for 30 years now, right? Um, but then there's things that he knows that he needs to refer me to other people for
yeah,
based on what I'm experiencing, right? Um, when I needed knee surgery, he didn't try to do it himself. Errol, what are you experiencing? You keep talking about your
yeah,
knee, what you experience, and I would tell him, and he said, okay, I'm gonna refer you to an orthopedic
yeah,
surgeon. Because based on what I told him I was experiencing. Same thing. You look at, are you experiencing these things? That's what I want to identify first. What are you experiencing? And if it's any one of those that's on my homepage, then we have ways to address those things, to eliminate them, certainly decrease, but hopefully eliminate them, right? So it's just, what are you experiencing, really?
yeah, yeah. So now, so when was it that you started EA consulting?
2012.
2012. So now you've been doing this a while. It's evolved, no doubt.
Mhm.
Um, what's an indicator to you that the mission you were longing to fulfill when you were 53 and in corporate has been fulfilled or addressed?
Oh man. Just in seeing my clients, Hirsch, seeing the changes that have come about because of my engagement with them, um, to me, that's what it's all about. Yeah, yeah, I get paid to do it, but just to see the positive impact to their company and to the employees, and then when they can give you a testimonial, because if you scroll down further on my homepage, there's testimonials, right? Um, that's what does it for me. It's just to see the positive change um, and to know that they hear me in their head, right?
Hmm.
Because I'm the type of consultant, when we're looking at your processes, I'm flowing them out, right? I'm not just telling you what to do. I'm flowing them out. We're looking at them together. And the more we do that together, then they start to already know what I'm getting ready to ask. So that's telling me they're learning, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, and then hopefully they can do it themselves. I
Well,
I
that, yeah. Go ahead.
I have
Sorry.
we're friends now. One of my former clients here in Houston, we're friends now. He and his partner were clients back in 2015. And he told me, he said, man, I started to hear you in my head, just all the questions you would ask us. He said, I started asking myself those same questions as we were looking at things. And that's what makes me happy. And to me, that's what it was all about when I decided to do this way back then, was to be able to see and hear these things that I hear from my clients.
Yeah. I think that it works the other way too. Because with what I do in personal branding, I'm working on the client's message and
Mhm.
I hear them, like I hear their voice, and all I do is just kind of translate it, refine it, calibrate certain things a little differently so that it hits their audience the right way. But it's about getting to know their voice. But I love the fact that your clients kind of are they're in a way they're training, they're understanding, they're better at what they do as a result of working with you, not just like you're solving a problem, but they're really growing.
Right,
And I
right,
think maybe that was that thing that you were kind of looking for, is that you would actually help them grow, not just, okay, here's a solution, boom, problem solution, you know?
right. Even doing some of our flow charting sessions, I'll ask, okay, what question am I getting ready to ask now? Right. And somebody can usually tell me, or I know you get ready to ask us so and so and so. So I'm like, yep. So that lets me know they're listening, they're learning, they're into what we're doing, right? It's not just about me,
Yeah.
it's about me sharing my expertise so that people get better for the long term, right? And they can continue on. And it's fine and nice if, hey, we want to work with you on something else. Okay. But if I can feel like, hey, they can go on from here, you know,
Yeah.
and think their way through this, just like we were doing in our sessions. That's fun, Hersh. That's
Well,
fun.
that brings us um, to legacy, which
Hmm.
is something that, some people think of it very early on. Some people think of it after they've been working a while. I actually had someone that I was talking to not too long ago, and I asked them about legacy, and they said, I don't think about that. They're like, I don't care about that, which is very rare. It's very rare that someone doesn't, think about, well, what am I going to leave behind? What am I building that's lasting? Have you thought about that? What your legacy ought to be?
I guess my legacy. should be my methodology, right?
Mhm.
Uh, how did Errol do what he did in helping his clients? What steps did he take? And how can I leave that behind so that somebody else can do it, right? Just take my methodology and 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 keep it going. Um, in regards to my kids, I have a son and a daughter, you know, would I like for them to keep it going? Only if they want to, right?
Mhm.
Uh, only if they want to. But I think my methodology will be my legacy. That's what I think, Hirsch. You
I
know.
love that. I
Yeah.
love that. Well, let's close this out with maybe a thought for people who are, and I wrote about this in my newsletter. I touched on it in my newsletter on LinkedIn last week, but um, people who are very comfortable in the corporate environment, but like you, they feel like there's more. They know that there's more. Let's put it that way.
Hmm.
But it's hard to move when you're comfortable. It's hard to move when you fit somewhere. What advice might you give someone who has that certainty and yet they're not quite finding it easy to move?
You know what? First of all, I would say whatever it is they're feeling, the hesitancy, the concern, that's normal, right? That's normal. Um, but if you really want to get out on your own, you're gonna have to step off the boat, right? You're gonna have to step off the boat. You can't stay on the boat and you can't do both. Either you gotta get out of the boat and get in the water, um, and eventually get out in deep waters. Because if you're in the shallows, it's easy to jump right back in the boat, right?
Yeah.
But if you get out in the deep water, you can't even see the boat anymore. So you have to make a decision. Am I going to stay in the boat or am I going to get out of the boat? And then you have to not be concerned about how it looks to other people. You have to
Yeah.
not be concerned, right? And don't feel like you always have to explain yourself because this is a decision that you're making because you want to, not because you feel like you need to explain yourself all the time.
Yeah.
Uh, and then bet on yourself. Bet on yourself. Most of us, like I said earlier, have at least one gift. A lot of us have multiple gifts. So bet on yourself and your belief in your gift, um, and your unique insights into whatever it is you're going to do once you get out of the boat. Believe in your gift and your insights and all of this that you developed and gathered over time. Just believe in yourself enough to bet on yourself. Is it going to be easy? No. Will you be afraid? Yes. But that's normal. You just keep pressing. Will it happen overnight? Maybe, but more than likely not, right? So just keep pressing, measure your progress. Yeah, you want to this you go away out here, but measure your progress in route. How am I relative to where I was a year ago, 2 years ago, a month ago? Measure your progress. So, and be kind to yourself and be patient with yourself, you know. But more over anything, you got to get out of the boat. You can't stay in the boat and want to be over here too. It won't work. You got to get out of the boat.
Yeah. Beautifully stated, and a lot of good stuff in there. And it's interesting that the get out of the boat thing, because in the case that we're talking about, that boat is moored to the dock. You know, you're not, it's not going anywhere. The boat's not going to go to the place you are envisioning.
That's
And
right.
the only way to get there is to jump out. And I also thought about what you said about not listening to other people or being dissuaded by other people. You know, I find anyway, and I'm a communications person, but I find anyway when I'm talking to people that I care about, people in my family, my wife, I don't do as good a job of explaining anyway what my
Mhm,
strategy is
mhm,
because I'm
mhm.
too wrapped up in it. I'm too
Right,
nervous. I
right,
want too badly for them to like it or approve it, and then and as a result, it comes out not as impressive.
right,
Whereas if I just go and do it because I know deep down it's the right thing, they'll see the result, which is what they're going to need to see anyway.
right.
And you know, I'm actually holding on to their faith rather than squandering it on a poorly delivered,
Yeah,
hesitant
right,
hesitant speech. You know what I mean?
right. Because we get nervous, Hirsch, when we
Yeah,
are trying to explain it, and then people have asked me, well, why do you do what it is you do? It's like because I want to, because I like it, you know.
yeah,
And that's why I do it, and I stopped trying to explain it. You know, it's
yeah.
you know, I just go on my web. I give people my website address. Go on my website address. You know,
Yeah. Which, by the way, is ErrolAllenConsulting.com. Allen, Allen, Errol with two R's. ErrolAllenConsulting.com. Errol Allen, thank you so much for being on Yes Brand. Um, I really enjoyed our conversation, and I am certain that the audience listening out there appreciated what you had to say today.
well, you're welcome, Hirsch. I had a good time with you today. It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Alright.
If you liked the show,
Yes, and?
it worked for you,
Yes, then?
subscribe and leave a
Yes, friend.
5-star review.
Yes, friend.
Tell all your friends.
Yes, friend.
Get your branding here.
Yes, friend.
Get your branding here.
Yes, friend.
Did I make it clear?
Yes, friend.
Get your